have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
Washington, D.C., 1963. Democracy speaks in a mighty voice.
All right, you good to go, Brother Gene?
Well, good evening, listening audience. This is the Los Angeles South Chamber of Commerce meeting with you and addressing you on a very, very important remembrance. This is the remembering of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, with the famous speech delivered by Dr. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. Because of the different age groups that are with us, we'll give some dialogue, kind of an introductory sense. We're going to have three speakers. I'm the moderator. I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. And as each person comes on, we have our director of the LA South Chamber of Commerce, Dexter McLeod, will tell you a little bit about his background and relationships to civil rights. And then we have Captain Dr. Gerald Higginbotham, fondly known as Captain G, will also share with you. But we want you to know that we have something called a Hope Foundation, a part of our chamber, and the Hope Foundation and our Education Committee, of which I am the director of the Education Committee, and Captain G is one of our captains. We're presenting this to you today. It is somewhat of an informal. We planned it to be very, very organic. Some of you know, because many people have long histories with the subjects, this is something that we could talk about for days and days and days. So we're really going to be anchoring this around the participants here. And there is somewhat of a small live audience, but we have a very larger audience out in Facebook world, okay, who will also be listening. We also want you to know, should you want to share this with others, that when you look up the LA South Chamber of Commerce Outlook, you can pull this up on our YouTube channel and be able to watch this as often as you like and start your own dialogues with individuals. So I'd like to begin with myself. So I did announce I'm the LA South Chamber of Commerce Education Director. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. I currently reside in San Diego. Just a brief history for me. I was in the United States in terms of civil rights. I was once in the United States military. I was the special assistant to the Commodore of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, 1968 to 72, on race and human relations, advocacy and civil rights. And then I became a member of San Diego School District, and I was over the race and human relations program for about 18 years. And also the purpose of that role was to look at equal opportunity, mediation, closely relevant instructional strategies, history, and then more recently, I have been a member of the chamber for going on 2 years. So I have a large sample size of working with student population, kindergarten through 12. And I want to report to you, as some of you may know, that as large a subject as this is for some of us, we have youth today that if you say the name Martin Luther King, they might say something like, oh yeah, that man with that holiday I don't know what he did, but I know we get off work and we get off school. So that's how far we've come from the center of something that's very, very, very dear. And then of course, just the opposite. You have people of all age groups who have a very, very deep understanding. So we're all over the place in a conversation like this in terms of what this means. We chose the title Jobs and Freedom, Today's Perspectives. Jobs and Freedom, Today's Perspectives, because the LA South Chamber of Commerce primarily recognizes the entrepreneurship of particularly what we call South Los Angeles and the 12 or more individuated locations that make up the community, and how it is that we are exercising our civil rights, equality, and ability to for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what our Constitution has promised us. And again, we have a number of committees. We invite you to look at our webpage and really surf it and learn kind of the length and breadth of this very, very, very important Chamber of Commerce. So, Dexter, if we could pull up, if we have available, I have some quotes from Dr. King. Are we able to pull those up?
Stand by. Give me a minute here, brother.
Okay, and while he's doing that, Dr. King is celebrated for a lot of individuated parts of his very, very famous speech. And as we learn more about Dr. King, I'm going to say his journey with civil rights was there we go, in many, many phases. So the chamber once did a talk a year or so ago from the I Have a Dream speech. We took that as a spinoff and said, Dr. King awake. Sometimes the current generation say, well, what was he dreaming about? Okay. Well, we also want them to know that he's awake. So this cartoonist catches it very nice. We'll do several of them. So listen to our Dr. King. Our nation was born in genocide when it embraced the doctrine that the original American, the Indian, was an inferior race. We are perhaps the only nation that tried, as a matter of national policy, to wipe out its indigenous population. I prefer the guy who talks about dreams and stuff. So this represents the mainstream population who was struggling to embrace Dr. King. You know, he was even labeled as a communist. Okay, but this Dr. King, who really cut deep into the fabric of America, quite often was really, really unwelcome. Let's get another caption. Many white Americans of goodwill have never connected bigotry with economic exploitation. They have deplored prejudice, but tolerated or ignored economic injustice. I prefer the guy who talks about dreams and stuff. So center to this chamber now, because this chamber stands on the platform of economic development. So you're going to hear some of our speakers here, our director and Captain G, really talk about the outcomes of this economic exploitation that Dr. King also talked about while he was asking us to hold hands and integrate and sit next to one another. Let's pull up another one. Somebody told a lie one day. Let's see if I could pull this up. I'm kind of missing it. Hold on. Okay, good. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in a language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms for the word black. It's always something degrading, low, and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. Well, I want to get the language right. Tonight, I want to get the language so right that everybody will cry out, yes, I'm black and I'm proud of it. I'm black and beautiful. Now, for some of the generations who are listening, we know that the culture that's been deemed as black or African American, or colored, or Negro. We have many, many names that have been identified us, but finally got to a point to the word I'm black and I'm proud, I'm black and I'm beautiful. And it was a necessary stage because of what he just said, the language of the culture, but at the same time, the Bible's encased in black. You get married in a black tuxedo, the judge wears black. So it was really a strange thing how black was portrayed as something inferior, but the very best of the culture oftentimes was enshrouded in black. So we're really demystifying this journey with what black means and doesn't mean. Let's pull up another one. The Republican Party geared its appeal and program to racism, reaction, and extremism. All people of goodwill viewed with alarm and concern the frenzied wedding at the Cow Palace of the KKK with the radical right. So what he's really pointing out now, and this was extremely courageous for him at the time, because some of our conservative Americans who happen to be are also Republican. This is not an indictment of Republican Party. It is an indictment of people who make up the Republican Party who happen to be on the extreme side of the right and prejudice and discrimination, including members of the Ku Klux Klan. And Dr. King boldly called this out. It wasn't just but a few years ago, right in Los Angeles, that the KKK came out in uniform in Anaheim and shocked the current and contemporary public. So Dr. King's concern about that group was apropos. Let's do a couple more. Discrimination is a hellhound that gnaws at Negroes in every waking moment of their lives to remind them that the lie of their inferiority is accepted as truth in the society dominating them. So in psychology, there's a word called objectify. And what objectify means, if you say, oh, those people are just stupid. Okay, well, the word stupid becomes the objectification. So no matter who they are as individuals, no matter what they do or don't do, the objective word is stupid. And so you respond to stupid. Okay, or in the case of sexism, men might say, oh, well, women are this or that. You start responding to a word and to the person. So we have been really victims of objectification kinds of statements in this culture. And now we have to disaggregate that objectification and continue to present ourselves as alive and well, diverse people. We'll do one more. To ignore evil is to become an accomplice to it. To ignore evil is to become an accomplice to it. He also said, right along with that, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I'm going to finish my part here of introduction for just a minute. Let's just leave this up because I like that to be in front of us. To ignore evil is to become an accomplice to it. Okay, so either part of the solution or part of the problem, some people would say. So recently on the talk show, it was a Christian talk show, and they did a really good job, I thought, on really identifying some of the facets of Dr. King. And they identified, I actually wrote them down, they identified that what he stood for was love, conscience, justice, freedom, perseverance, and hope. Love, developing the conscience, standing for justice, seeking freedom, persevering, and daring to hope in the midst of something called civil rights, in the midst of something called integration, and in the midst of achieving equality. Some of his contemporaries at the time was Malcolm X. And, Malcolm X departed from civil rights, and he advocated for human rights. And he advocated for human rights because he thought we could go to the world court. He thought if we stayed under civil rights, then we would only be limited to the sphere of whatever America was or wasn't. And then you had many, many groups seeking many, many facets that you can read in some of our in our Black Studies programs. But Dr. King, perhaps right along with Malcolm, became the two most famous faces, one standing for civil rights, one standing for human rights. I would advocate both of what were equally important. We had to deal with the civil rights of the very culture that we're a part of. We also had to be under the jurisdiction of human rights so that we could receive world assistance when our own culture would honor or not honor us. So that's my introduction. I'd like to bring on our next introductory panelist, and that's Dexter McLeod. He is the director of the LA South Chamber of Commerce and founder of it, of the Commerce, along with other founding members. And he's going to, in his talk, help us understand the value of networking, help us understand the value of collaboration, help us understand the value of cooperative economics, and a few more things that I'm sure he's going to add to that platform. So Dexter, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
and then we like to hear those things I just talked about.
Very good. Shall I leave the screen up, Brother Jane?
No, you can take that down because I think you may, you may have some things.
All right, no worries, no worries. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining this evening. Again, Dexter McLeod, Los Angeles South Chamber of Commerce. The significance of yesterday, let's just say yesterday, the 28th of August, 60 years later, you know, I wasn't born, of course, 60 years ago. I'm not there yet, not quite yet, but the impact of that movement, that march, you know, still resonate today. This chamber was built on the foundation, and we stand on the shoulders of a lot of different organizations and a lot of different movements. I am a student and of those movements, way back with the Marcus Garvey movement to all types of different movements that we had in this nation. Let me just real briefly, again, Dexter McLeod, native of South Los Angeles. I have traveled just about the world and learned a lot, learned a lot. My background is in engineering, but I am an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time. And the reason why I decided to go into entrepreneurship and running my business, several reasons, but the main reason is freedom. 60 years ago, like I said, different perspective. 60 years ago, the campaign was a march for jobs and freedom. Okay, it wasn't, the March on Washington was about jobs and freedom. Okay, a lot of people just want to pigeonhole and put it in a box that it was just Martin Luther King up there saying a speech. No, it was a lot of different organizations coming together, collaborating together for a common cause. And that was the development of not only Black people, and that's where another misconception, everybody thinking it was just for Blacks. No, it was for human beings, everybody. And so let's put that in perspective for just a minute. 60 years ago, we didn't have a Voting Rights Act. We didn't have that. So, lots of times it was still making you count the bubble gum or count the marbles or count something in a glass jar in order to vote. They had all these tests that you had to take in order to vote because they wasn't allowing people of color, not just Black folks, but people of color, immigrants as well, to vote in America. How about that? Especially people of color that was born here. The Constitution says you had a constitutional right that you are an American citizen and you should have the right to vote. But we were denied that right. We had to take all these different tests, which was, ridiculous in order to vote. So 60 years ago when they had that march, and again today, 60 years later, we take advantage of a lot of that. A lot of people don't vote because it's not convenient for them. They don't go to the polls because they have to stand in line for a little bit. Or now here, thank you, California, here in the great state of California, you don't even have to stand in line. All you have to do is just fill out a sheet of paper and drop it in the mailbox and don't have to put a stamp on it. How about that? And some people don't even take advantage of that. How about that? 60 years from 60 years. 60 years ago, people died. Have y'all heard of Medgar Evers? People died. Have you heard of the three young men, college students that went to Mississippi and got killed because they was trying to register people to vote? And today we don't even take advantage of voting. How complacent is that? Okay. Also, let's talk a little bit. I got to put my glasses on, but also let's talk a little bit about housing. We didn't have housing rights. We didn't have civil rights, civil rights. Now we just talk about civil rights like it's a common thing, but 60 years ago, that didn't exist. Civil rights, people could discriminate against you because they didn't like what you look like. They said, no, you cannot, you have to go through the back door. And see, again, like I said, I was not here 60 years ago. My parents was here, okay? And they grew up in the South. They were from the South. And yes, so they had experienced that. So we think that was 100, especially young people think that this was back in the dinosaur days when this happened. But no, my parents experienced that in the South. The humiliation of being treated like a child. My father, my grandfather, who's a World War II veteran with medals and honors. But when he came back from the war, had to walk across the street from white folks. When the white folks walked by me, had to walk across the street. He had his own business. He owned a gas station. And he could not say that he was the owner of the gas station. He had to stand out there because back in the day, they had, attendants that would pump your gas and wash your windows and check your oil. So he had to continue to do that because if they found out that he owned it, they probably would have burnt it down and, and it would have been a very bad scenario for him. So the discrimination, the humiliation is one generation away, okay? So civil rights didn't exist 60 years ago. So when you see them marching on jobs and freedoms, and let's look at the significance of 1963. Well, let's backtrack 100 years before 1963. It was 1863, 100-year anniversary. What happened in 1863? Well, it was a civil war going on, okay? And so they were saying, how far have we came in 100 years, okay, in 1963. And like I said, segregation was alive and well. Let's talk one more thing. Let's talk a little bit about housing. Yes, let's talk about redlining. Let's talk about it. And those of you all from Los Angeles, y'all know that Central Avenue, the East Side, was mainly where a lot of the Blacks and a lot of the some of the immigrants lived. Because guess what? You couldn't buy a house over in Leimert Park back in those days. You can buy a house in Santa Monica and Hawthorne and Manhattan Beach. Y'all know what happened in Manhattan Beach back in the day. Y'all already know that story with Bruce Beach. Tried to run a business, and y'all saw what happened with that. That's not Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. That was in Manhattan Beach, California. So housing, you couldn't live where you wanted to live here in Los Angeles, California. See, we think that was just some little pocket in Alabama and Mississippi. But if we look real close, let's take a look at the 110 freeway. Do your history on the 110 freeway here in Los Angeles. Yeah, let's talk about that. I don't have the time to go into the details of that, but if y'all want to talk about housing discrimination, fair housing did not exist in 1963, okay? Today, we take a lot of things for granted. So one more thing, education. Let's talk about education. Couldn't go to the schools that you wanted to go to. Wasn't allowed to go there. Even here in the great city of Los Angeles, you couldn't go to certain schools. We took a field trip because we have a travel club because we are not your average chamber. We had a field trip up to Allensworth. And some of y'all might have heard of Allensworth, a Black township. They didn't burn it down like they did in Tulsa. But you know what? They took the resources away. They stopped the train. The train was the main form of transportation, transporting products and goods. And they took that away, which affected the economy. So that transitioned me right into the economics, okay? Housing education, all has a part, and of course, business, okay? All has a factor to what? Generate wealth. Generate wealth generation. Because if you can purchase a home, if you could get education is part of building your wealth, building a business, all those things is a part of it, which was denied, okay? Denied on a free market. Let me just say a free market, because we did have education. We had HBCUs. Yes, we did. We did have our own businesses, which were thriving, by the way. Okay, every city had their own set of businesses that was just for Black folks, and they were thriving. Okay. But those are elements that generate wealth. And when we talk about generating wealth, we're talking about generation of wealth. You know, so the laws that was in place in 1963 that denied us, and that was 100 years. Let's just put that in perspective. 100 years after slavery was over with. 100 years of segregation, 100 years of Jim Crow within my parents' lifetime. Okay, Captain G go come in because you know some of this he experienced when he was a young kid, and I'm sure Brother Jane experienced some things when he was a young man and a teenager and things like that, things that he experienced in our lifetime. So to sum it all up, we have made a lot of progress. Yes, we have in the 60 years since 1963. Yes, we have made a lot of progress, but we have a lot to go. If you all remember the mission in 1968 before Dr. King was assassinated, you know, they was doing the Poor People's Campaign, okay? Because Dr. King was talking about economic development, economic empowerment, okay? Now, let me fast forward. Why do we have a Chamber of Commerce, okay? We have a Chamber of Commerce because of economic empowerment. To learn how to be self-sustainable, okay? Building your own business, learning how to be self-sustainable, meaning that you do not have to rely on other people, corporations, a job. And I'm saying that because I experienced that with a job. And when it's time, you know, you first, last hired and first fired, first one to get laid off and things like that. I experienced all that. So I learned as a younger man, I learned, hey, I need to have my own. That way I have control of my own destiny. Entrepreneurship is important. Entrepreneurship gives you the opportunity to create wealth, generate wealth, and to pass on a legacy of wealth to your next generation. Okay, buying property, investing, opportunity to generate wealth and pass that down to the next generation. So it's important, and that's what our organization, that's what our chamber is about. We are not your average chamber. We practice where we living the dream. We're living it. We're living, and our folks that was before us already built the blueprint. It was just for us to implement that blueprint. And that's what we did with this chamber, is implement the blueprint from years and years and movements ago. We practice collaboration because two heads is better than one. Imagine if 10 people, and I learned this at the Million Man March back in the 90s, and they said, I remember Minister Farrakhan got up and said, everybody just donate, I think it was $1. Yeah, just donate $1. Everybody pass a hat around, pass a bucket, and just put $1 there. We have 1 million people. We can generate $1 billion in a matter of 10 minutes. Now just imagine if a group of us pull together resources, $100, $1,000, $5,000. If we could all pull resources together and go buy convention centers, go buy hotels. So the next time we want to do an event, a gala, a dance, a party, a fundraiser, or whatever, then we don't have to go to the big brands businesses. We can own our own. How about that? That is called practicing collaboration. That is also called practicing cooperative economics, pooling your resource. And cooperative economics is not just the money, it's the resources, it's your time, your talent, your treasures, your knowledge, it's your your skill sets that you have. That is part of practicing cooperative economics. So I'm going to stop right there. Well, I'm not going to stop. One more thing. Hope. Helping other people every day. That is what we practice in this organization. We are not your average chamber. Helping other people every day, because it's not about just chasing the money bag. It's about building our communities. It's about educating our communities. It's about developing people to become self-sustainable. That is what hope represents, helping other people every day. So thank you all for your ear. Thank you all for your time and listening. And I'm going to hand the mic over to brother, Dr. Captain G, who's done changed hats about 3 times already. But Captain G, I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Thank you, brother. God bless. Turn that sucker around so we can read it.
You went there. I was at the Million Man March. This is my, while I was there, I was like, Lord, why you got me out here at the Million Man March? She said to buy this hat, because this hat here represents you 1 in a million. You have the one with the plan to bring about change. So let me, Dexter, I want to just say to you, that was excellent. You brought it home. And I just want to piggyback off of that, because I was around in 1963. I was 5 years old. And I remember the speech. My parents made us watch it on television, watch Dr. King. So I was connected to it. I was with you every step of the way. But everything that you said is right on point. He was about economic development. You covered that. He was about voting rights. He was about freedom. He was about equality. He wanted to end racial white supremacy. He was about that. Where we are today, is white supremacy still with us? Absolutely. Is racial inequality still with us? Absolutely. We're still not treated fairly. They've taken away, just in the last month or two, 60 years of Supreme Court just signed a bill to begin to start dismantling the things that we've got. So civil rights, and this is where I kind of like we got off course, because we thought that our ancestors thought that we made it once we got civil rights. But now they've taken the civil rights from us, and we're still back where trying to take us back. The issue that we must have, and this is just a changing in words, we have to have equal status. Our position in American society, having competent knowledge, wealth, and power that's neither inferior nor superior to that of any other ethnic group. We have to have equal status. And that's something that we have to begin to work on to acquire. I want to play a video, and I got since you gave me control, I want to play a 3-minute video to bring us to where we are today. And this is important because we keep celebrating this anniversary, and I think it's awesome, but we need a little bit more information that can really begin to cause us to move forward, and we can start doing this true economic cooperative and creating a better community model. This is a piece.
And Captain G, before you do that, if you don't mind, give us a minute or two of your background so the listening audience can understand how you've arrived at equal status by the accomplishments of your own life, that doctor that's in front of your name, and a few other things. Just give us 1 or 2 minutes of your background so the listening audience can understand who's talking to them.
You know what? Forgive me for not doing that, because I don't talk about that, because I try and keep that on just quiet, and let's just, I'm your friend Gerald. But I was part of the Watts riot, August 11th, 1965 and 68, and that started me on this journey that I've been on for 55 years. I have a PhD, I have my undergrad is in psychology. I'm originally from South Central LA, Los Angeles, Watts. I went to Morningside High School, graduated, went to Cal State Northridge, got my degree in psychology. I have got my master's degree in biblical studies. My PhD is in divinity. I have an entrepreneurial degree. I'm a commercial airline captain. I just retired after 37 years from moving people from A to B. I got over 20,000 flight hours. I've traveled the globe. I've spoken in Australia. I've spoken at the United Nations. I've spoken even in London at the House of Lords of London. I've spoken in Liverpool at the American Slavery Museum. I served as 5 years as the vice president for the American Slave Nonprofit Foundation out of Louisville as their executive vice president. I've served currently as the prime minister for the American Slave Nation. So I've been on this journey here to help our people because the system has not been set up to help us. And this video here helped me. And I thank God for Hera Belafonte and Dr. C.T. Vivian, because they all was with Dr. King. They was part of his inner circle. And Dr. King mentored Dr. C.T. Vivian, and C.T. Vivian was big on voting rights. He mentored me. And I've been tied to this thing since 1963, technically, because I saw the speech at 5 years old. But it was this piece here that I want to share with you that really made me put the brakes on and say, oh, wait a minute, pump the brakes. I can't continue to go in that direction because this is leading us into a wrong space. And I said, somebody's got to say time out. Let's begin to chart a course. And being a pilot, I said, okay, we'll chart a new course for us right now, where we are. But I want to play this video because it will really lend credence to what we're supposed to be doing and why what Dexter is doing is so important, and what you're doing, Eugene, is so important. What I'm doing to help create better communities is so important. It is all tied together, and we have to do this now because we're out of time doing the wrong thing. I was really upset this week because some killings took place on the anniversary. And so I said, it's time to step up. Enough is enough. But I want to play this piece. Was that okay for you?
Absolutely.
All right, because let me play this piece.
It's only a testimony to your character that you started off speaking before introducing yourself. But again, we have such a large listening audience. People want to know who they're talking to. Thank you very much, Captain G. We just call him Captain G.
All right. Can you see this here?
Yes.
I want to play this here. If you guys turn up your speakers.
Blacks and whites in America specifically. Why have we not come together? What has kept us apart?
I think institutions that have traditionally found their favor with social goals that are benefited by races being apart. I think that, Dr. King once said to me, he said, it is possible for me to perhaps do something that could eliminate racism and never put a dent in poverty. But if I could eliminate poverty, I would necessarily set the most powerful force for the elimination of racism. Because I think the practice of race difference, the practice of race animosity, is directly connected to the economic well-being of peoples all over the world. And if we could eliminate that fact, if we could reshape economic definitions, if we could find a way to redistribute the wealth of this planet and put it into the hands of people where they could find decency and find harmony in their daily experience, I think that we'd eliminate racism, sexism, and a whole lot of others. The last thing Dr. King ever said to me, 5 days, as a matter of fact, before he was murdered, was he was at my home. We had just finished a strategy meeting on the Poor People's Campaign. And he seemed quite agitated after what we thought was a very successful gathering and discussion. And he said to me, I said, what's the matter, Martin? You seem very agitated. He said, well, I am. Because I've come upon a thought that I don't know how to deal with at this moment. I said, well, what is it? He says, we fought long for integration. It looks like we're going to get it. I think we get the laws. He says, but I'm afraid that I've come upon something I don't know quite what to do with. I'm afraid that we're integrating into a burning house. And when we asked for further clarification, Andy Young was with me at that time, my wife, others. He said, America's lost whatever little moral vision it had. Its moral sense has run away from the nation. And a nation that is not governed by morality and moral principles is a nation that's headed for an abyss. And I think black people who have been struggling to get into this system may be getting into a system that in the final analysis is a Sodom and Gomorrah, will not work. Because its selfish goals, its need for profit, its need for supremacy, its need to be the best has clouded its moral vision. And with no moral vision, no nation can be healthy enough to lead its people anywhere except to destruction. I can't remember a time in my life, I'm 68 years old, and I cannot remember a time in my life when I've ever seen white men, white male Americans, as angry as they are today. I mean, really, they're in a rage, albeit that it sits in some places quiet. But it's theirs. It's being described by the politicians who are running for office on the platforms they run. It's also being reflected by the fact that, Oklahoma City, when that federal building was bombed by those white men, wasn't about black folk. That's white on white. Why are these men so violent? Why are they so angry? And the conclusion was that if you lived in America where you've invested in the dream and you are white, and you said, I'm going to put my little money aside, I'm going to put my retirement aside, I'm going to have this little plot of land, I'm going to do this, do that, my IRS, my Social Security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you wake up one day and somebody says to you, well, your Social Security is going to be no more. That retirement plan that you had saved up for was stolen in the SNL scam. All those jobs that you had in those institutions that you love, 36,000 of you just been fired.
Then I'm going to blame Harry Belafonte and black people for reverse discrimination taking my job.
There you go.
And we're out of time.
Can I ask a question to the group? What did you just get out of that?
I got things haven't changed much. I mean, we saw that with the January 6th, the riots at the hostile takeover that they were trying to do at the White House. Not the White House, I'm sorry, at the Capitol. So I see it that things have not the needle haven't moved that far with the rage that's there.
Anissa, I see your hands up. You had a question?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I was around in the 60s when the riots happened, not in LA, in Cleveland. LA was the catalyst that set it off. And what I heard Mr. Belafonte say, or rather allude to, is that what he said and what Dexter sent him as his sentiments, not a whole lot has changed. Mr. King, Dr. King, wanted to change our financial reality. He talked a lot about unity and economic unity in order for us. And there was even a time where he said something to the effect of not even participating in the commercialization of Christmas anymore. That we should hold our economic dollars back because they're profiting off of our misery and profiting off of our poverty, and they really don't care anything about us. He talked a lot about changing social policies because it's really the social policies that shape the laws, or vice versa, depending upon how you look at it. And you're right, Captain G, they are angry. And they're blaming it on us when they should be pointing the finger at themselves. But we also at the same time have a responsibility as a people, as a community, to get rid of whatever demons is running around in our mind to help us to trust one another again. Because we own property and land and businesses. When I was a little girl in the community, everything was Black. But when the riots came and everything burned down, everybody moved out and nobody built it back. So I admire what Dexter is doing. And I support the work that you're doing as well, sir. That's all.
Thank you for those your comments, they were spot on. Thank you. Anyone else got anything out of this? What he just said?
I felt that what I got out of that was that Dr. King was prescient. He saw that Black people in the at the time that he was speaking, which was the 60s, were just so desperate to share or become part of the American society that they were following a path or a scheme that Dr. King realized or recognized would lead not only them to destruction, but us to destruction, because we were following a path in terms of the focus on generating wealth and just following the same playbook, pursuing as he stated, the doctrine of being number one, not only number one in our country, but number one in the world. And by definition, that drive to be number one was in itself destructive, because there was no morality there. There was no concern for others. And that's what I got out of it, that he was very, and that's why I think, as Adrian, Dr. Adrian had said, or Harry Belafonte, that Dr. King was very troubled, because he saw where we would end up, not only as a nation, but as a people, if we got on that bandwagon. And in fact, we did get on that bandwagon, and we still are on that bandwagon, is what I got out of it.
Thank you so much for Lorraine for sharing that, that comment. Thank you. Jean, did you have something you wanted to? Did you get something?
Yes, just a few additional pieces. I think it's important because there was a great move to try to divide the African American community, Black community as it was called at the time, between two polarities, between Malcolm X and between Martin Luther King, okay? But just before Dr. King passed, I have the picture if you've seen it, he met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they met, and they talked, and they dialogued, okay? And in that dialogue, okay, two great communities came together. And then it was shortly after that, because if you remember, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and others who had come before him and along with him had practiced the idea of developing for Black people our own nation state. He was bold enough to say, look, we're not going to resolve this. Your behavior, as Dr. King says, is not going to change. So why don't you just give us 5 states? People say, oh my God, no, he didn't ask. He said, yeah, give us 5 states. We'll create our own and live side by side in exchange as 2 nations. Okay, we don't have to fight. We don't have to war. You know, you don't like us, and we can tolerate you. So again, what you're getting at that point, as Malcolm X, someone wrote a book about Malcolm X. He called it the evolution of a revolution. So, and then too, the disaggregation. I'll end on this. When they disaggregated the outcome, because the civil rights movement of Dr. King became co-opted. It actually became co-opted, and they have now disaggregated that the population who benefited the most out of the civil rights movement actually was the white female.
That's correct.
That population benefited more than anybody, and that's not a put down. It's okay if good, hardworking white females benefit, but they shouldn't have been the only ones to benefit like they did. That's who really, really got the most out of this. So now coming back to today, and then looking for the rest of your talk, Captain G, I'm hoping you'll take us to 30,000 feet here. Okay, and Dexter, what is the new language of today? What is the direction of the day? So that I think it was Esau, Jesus, as he's called. He said, "Be in the world, but not of the world." So how can we be in America, but not of America? A different moral vision, okay, a different moral vision, and to help transform this country, because we are here. So I'll just stop there. That's my takeaway.
Okay, well, let me give you what I got out of the video. He told us 5 days before he was assassinated, don't follow him. I believe that
Yeah.
I have led you into a burning house. And we still went, they killed him and the message never got up. I saw
Right.
here where he said that America lost its moral vision. A nation that does not have a moral vision is a nation that's headed for abyss. And that's where
Right.
we find us to this day, that we have to have a moral vision. He also said that it's going to require economics. If we're going to change the condition, it's not going to be able to come through socially. It has to come through economically. And so I want to share this with you, that the way this society works is economic confluence society. The politics manage society, and the game of life is played out in the social structure. So we need to really take heed to that. Economic influences society. So if we're going to influence the society in America, we have to have economics. Group economics is critical. And we have to be able to create a new form of a new political process called participatory democracy, where we don't give our vote to anyone. We come together and we use and set principles and processes in place to support our agenda. And those that we put in place have to, if they want our vote, they have to line up with our principles, what we believe in, what we want for our agenda, for our community, both here nationally and, but more importantly, at the local level, because we got gridlock in Washington. Nothing's going up, nothing's coming out. So we have an opportunity to influence the process here locally if once we're properly organized. The other thing I want to share with us, what we have to do, organization is critical. We're going to need about 16 teams and about 21 people on the team. The teams are manageable. The groups are small enough so that we can put in place that'll create several things for us. One, the ability to have force, because in order to bring about change, you do have to have force. You have to have power. When we look at some other small communities, and I'm going to go put it there, the Jewish community, they're small in numbers, but they are a powerful force because they are organized. Dexter is right. We have everything in our communities, but we're not properly organized. So that's going to be one of the things moving forward, to properly organize our communities in small groups that focus on the business, personal development, as well as the environment. Then we need to own businesses that service the retail market. And this is a different business mindset, where we have to create cooperative group economic businesses, where the dollar now can stay in the community, where it'll stop the profit flight, and we can create jobs here for those that need them. So we have to have a different type of business ownership, because the sole proprietor, mom and pop businesses do not have the same buying power as the conglomerates. So we have to have a new business model, and we're using the co-op. And finally, I would say this here, the environment is changing rapidly right now. We have to have environmental teams, air, water, fire, energy, to be able to look at those things that affects our communities. We just had a hurricane that came through here that did some damage. Not a lot of damage, but it did damage. But we now need to be in control of the environmental aspect. Air, fire, and water. Those are our natural forces that are powerful. And last but not least, and I'm closing on this one here, we have to deal with the mental realm. the spiritual realm, because that is man's most powerful, just like nature has those powerful forces, air, water, fire, energy, sun, electricity. Man's most powerful force is his spirit. It is the most powerful force. This is where we work on the root, because it'll begin to change the fruit immediately. Anyway, that's my take on all of that and where we need to go moving forward. No hooping, no hollering. It's about executing a plan. And we have the tools now to make that happen with the chamber and with Hope and with the Captain's Millionaire Inc. It's all about us now coming together to execute a plan to save ourselves, our families, and our communities, because it's apparent no one else is going to do this for us, and we can't expect others to do it for us. We can do this here because we now have the know-how. My time is up, and I'm switching it back over to you. If you have any questions, I'll gladly engage.
Yeah, so Captain Gina, I'm going to come back to you, then I'm going to come back to Dexter, but starting with you since you're talking, can you give, recently for the listening audience, our chamber had a coming together, a leadership conference, and we spent a number of days together laying out the framework for this year's goals. In that platform, you introduced to the listening audience, if you would just simply, two of which I think you wrote yourself, can you tell us, I think it's 4 signature books, if you would announce the names of those books and just a brief summary, because members of the chamber bought those books. We will be anticipating to have some study groups through the education committee, with you leading them, by the way. We just gave you another job. Those books to give that understanding so that we can have the new economic empowerment. So could you just introduce those books briefly so that people can know that they exist?
Yes, this is a book highly recommended. This is America's Little Black Book. This book here really lays the foundation, or fix the crack in the foundation. We are the crack. This here speaks to the things that we must do. It talks about reparation. Everything that's in this little piece here is to help us change our thinking and fix the crack here in America's broken foundation. This book here that I highly recommend is called it's called The Next Step Forward. This is the blueprint that these two books work hand in hand together. I gave this one away to the group, but these two go hands in hand and help us really explain what's happening. The key thing is getting understanding, getting it down on the inside of changing our thought. We change our thought, we'll change the whole process. Then the book that I got here called This Is Your Captain Speaking, Life Lesson Learned at 35,000 Feet. This book here really is like having a flight plan. Everybody needs a flight plan. We need to learn about teamwork. We need to learn about knowledge, ownership. And the last book that I wrote, and this book here speaks to where we are today: collaboration, teamwork, and networking. A case study for systematically working together to achieve successful living. I speak to this book here because 30 years ago, when I was doing the work of what Dr. King told us to do and to prepare us for this new information age, I wrote my analysis, my research, and exactly what I did, and put it in this book here and created a concept called success networking. This book here helps us have the paradigm shift, and this is the work that I did that's worth millions of dollars in research that we can put in place and just fix our communities and bring about the change that's so desperately needed.
So thank you, Captain G. So for the listening audience, you can go to the LA South Chamber of Commerce. You can contact Captain G directly. He has several learning platforms that people can join and do lifelong learning. But we want you to understand why we ask him to do this, that we're beyond rhetoric now. We have foundational tools. So Dexter, I'd like to ask you to come back on board. And for our listening audience, you have alluded to and hinted that the LA South Chamber of Commerce is here for collaborative, cooperative, and networking. You recently did a groundbreaking move in our chamber that I thought modeled for the country, as a matter of fact, and you ask everybody to become certified. Can you help the listening audience understand why you can stand now behind members of the chamber who have businesses that are certified, and the reason for that and the platform for that? Can you share that with us, Dexter? And is Dexter there?
That's okay. While he's coming, can I just say one other thing?
Yes, you can.
So we take up the time, use the time.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We have set in place training out at the Captains Plus website, Tier 1 and Tier 2, that we can begin to launch. This is we clear for takeoff. This is us. This is so important, like what Dexter has done for people joining the chambers. Captain Millionaire is set up now for all of us to be able to come through so we can have and get the same training. So we're thinking the same, speaking the same. And when we look at each other, we're gonna be like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. We're gonna know the game plan so that on the fast break, one of us gonna dunk it. We are in it to win it. We're not here just to play. It's time out for that. This is a systematic A, B, C, D, E, F, G process. Having been a captain for American Airlines, working for the largest airline, I studied when I was down there at the big training center and watching all the processes and how they put things in place to be a gigantic airline to train over 15,000 people every year, just the pilots. That's not including the 35,000 flight attendants, but it's training and proper education. And so we set up the Captain's Millionaire Institution to be able to do that same process to train us, to make us people that are principle, purpose, process, precision, people, priority, prosperity, philosophy driven, and also we'll have the mindset of a millionaire or millionaires. But we have this process in place, and we set up the TSA, the Think, Speak, Act training specifically for us now, so we can move forward without delay. I give it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Arthur, can you unmute yourself and share with us any thoughts that you have had about today's conversation? If you can hear me, Arthur. Is Arthur still there? What I want to do is
I'm here, but I don't have really much to say right now, but it's a very interesting conversation.
Okay, and I appreciate that. So you have found this to be interesting. Very good.
Yes,
So
interesting and enlightening about
thank you.
what's
Anissa,
about our history.
thank you. Anissa Muhammad,
Yes,
you
sir.
were part of an anthology, a book that has come out that actually was a bestseller on Amazon that assists in giving strategies for maintaining the family structure. Can you just say a few things about that book and your part? Because you must have family to pass economics and generational wealth too. Can you tell us a little bit about, in summary, what you have to say?
Of course.
Yes.
Repair the Black Family was the brainchild of Sister Naira Muhammad, who is a transformational life coach. She asked for 30 people to work with her to do a compilation work. And her whole thing is trying to remove the generational traumas and self-sabotaging ways that we have as a people. And so she wanted us to share part of our life story and be transparent about some of the things that have occurred in our lives that were not so good, but we turned those trials into triumphs. The actual formatting of that book is identical, but the stories, oh man, the stories that we share are insurmountable in its content. In addition to that, the book at the end of each chapter has action items, because if somebody was to read that book, if you would know somebody that's going through the exact same thing, and that was the whole point of the book. Somebody somewhere on this planet is going through the exact same thing. And if you want to be the victor instead of the victim, if you take these steps, I can guarantee you that you also are going to be set free. That's the whole gist of the book.
Well,
Excellent.
thank you very much. I want to inform the listening audience. There's a word that's in the lexicon now throughout the country, in the social and psychological realms, communication realms. It's called informed trauma. Informed trauma. And this grew out of one of our major hospital systems called Kaiser. And Kaiser did the research, they did a research on white middle-class families. And to their shock, they found out that these families who had achieved measurable success did so in spite of trauma in their lives. That led them to say, if these are white middle-class families who are thought to be an economic strength in American society, what about other families, okay, who are not middle class, okay, who don't have the privileges and the advantages that this population have? So it opened up the door wide to something called informed trauma. So Sister Anissa and the group of people that put together this anthology is extremely, extremely, extremely important that we have to go back to our childhood rearing. Do not come against our parents. Do not tear apart our societies. They did the best they could with what they had. But we simply have to recognize the struggles, okay, that our families had to get through. Okay, so I was telling Dexter earlier, if you remember, there was a popular song in the pop world called "You and I Ain't No Movie Star," and the stanza went, "What we are is what we are. We share a bed, popcorn, and TV. That's the life of the working man." Okay, so that is that angry white population, okay, that found out that after all that hard work, it didn't mean anything, and then they was looking for somebody to blame, and the easiest person to blame was us. But if you look at the Black Lives movement, you saw disenfranchised whites, disenfranchised blacks, all different ethnicities. That little game is breaking up, okay, pitting people against one another who have things in common. Dexter, are you on yet? Because I'm still trying to get Mr. Dexter on. Dexter's always being pulled away, but I'm going to go ahead and then and say what I was hoping for Dexter. So in the LA South Chamber of Commerce, Dexter did do a pause at the expense of some things even, and every member of the chamber who offered a business, he created a certification platform so that if any outside person calling on the resources of the chamber wanted some assistance from us, then you know when you call on Captain G, you're going to get A1 because he's been certified. In fact, he was certified before the chamber certified him, joke, joke, joke. But he also has the additional certification as many people who already had certification, but the chamber still had its own brand of certification. So I'm going to offer now that it is important now, and I'm using this word, and the chamber has popularized it of late, that we have to get certified. So these economic platforms and systems that Captain G has introduced to you, when you go look on his webpage and learn about these platforms, these will certify a thinking person. Look at the book that Sister Nisa was talking about. Look at the other kinds of things that live there. Many, many people that make up the chamber. This is a very, very small group of people here on this particular platform, but the chamber has over 400 members, and we have many, many, many services to offer. So kind of coming to a summary, again, I want to go back to the original piece. We looked at Martin Luther King's definition of love, which was a political love and a social conscious love. Martin Luther King's definition of conscience that we develop a moral conscience. Martin Luther King's idea of justice, okay, there's an old joke, not just us, okay, the mainstream white population, just us white folks, okay, but just is for everybody, and freedom, okay, someone once said, freedom really means freedom, to free the mind, okay, to really liberate the mind, and then perseverance, okay. Now, we don't need no lessons on perseverance, okay. We've been persevering since we landed on the shores of America, okay, but hope, helping other people every day, okay, hope, helping other people every day, extremely important. So we really thank the listening audience. This was really just a token, if you will, dialogue on a very large subject all over the country. If you go on YouTube, if you go to programs, if you go to our universities, this is being discussed, but we hope that the chamber has done its part, okay, to raise the consciousness, to look at the thinking, to assist one another, okay, in moving forward. And as Captain G said, that we really have to dismantle, okay, we really have to reshape economics. We have to redistribute wealth. Okay, we have to get from individual to conglomerate thinking. Okay, these words now have to penetrate. They have to be the new lexicon. They have to be the new language. Okay, and if you want to be a millionaire, you got to think like a millionaire. Okay, if you want to be intelligent, you got to be around intelligent people. Okay, if you want to be a thinker, you got to be around thinkers. I can go down the vocabulary. LA South Chamber of Commerce is one such place where we can involve ourselves with these kinds of individuals. So we're going to come to an end. Is there anyone who has any last parting comment that they want to say or introduce before we start moving towards closure here? Anyone else? And I don't know if Dexter, because Dexter may have been pulled away because he told me he was
No, I'm
working
good.
on
I'm
something.
back. I'm good.
Oh,
No.
okay. So Dexter, I spoke for you, but I still want you to speak. What I asked for you to do while you stepped away for a moment, I thought that you modeled as our leader a revolutionary concept within our organization called certification, so that if anybody calls upon a chamber's recommendation of someone, they will know that they've been certified. Can you just tell us a little bit about that thrust and why that was so important for you to do that?
Well, thank you, Brother Gene. And our certification process was birthed out of, we want to get it right. Okay. Of course, small businesses, I'm not going to just say Black-owned businesses, I'm not going to say people of color businesses, but small business in general have lots of times got a bad rap, that their customer service is not there, the quality of their products and services are not there, they have not crossed their T's and dotted their I's. It's just the misconceptions when you're dealing with small businesses. And so what we want to do with our certification process is to eliminate any reason, any excuses that people may come up with of why they do not support a small business. Because you hear that all the time. Oh, the ice is colder on the other side of the street. The grass is greener over there. But if we learn how to water our own grass, our grass could be just as green as anybody else in any other neighborhood. How about that? So our certification is also trust. Again, before our organization can refer business to anybody out there that's looking for services, people do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust. Trust is a big factor in any type of business that you go on, that you're supporting. So trust is the main thing. So that's why we created this certification process. It's not an additional cost to folks' membership. If you are a member, we encourage every member to become certified with us. We vet you. If you say you are a financial planner, Well, we want to see your credentials. We want to see your licenses. We want to see your degrees. We want to see what school you went to. We want to see what kind of training you had. If you say you're an airline pilot, well, you should have some a license to fly an airplane. I'm just saying. You should have it posted somewhere. You should have some type of training. Will you get on an airplane with somebody that don't have a pilot license? I'm just asking. But I'm just saying, same thing in business. So it's a trust, but verify. And that is why we created our certification programs, not to put our members through any extra types of work, but to, and it helps our membership. It helps them build credibility and leverage in this very, very competitive marketplace. Because again, if you're dealing with somebody's financials, if you're dealing with somebody's personal information, you want to make sure that that person is credible. And so we just do all that homework for you. We do all the research for you. So when we say, hey, this person is certified, we stand by this person, we endorse this business. That means that we already did the checking for you, and you could just eliminate that and go right to that person and start doing business with that person immediately. Because again, our goal is to get it right with our members, because once our members thrive like that, or they offer that, then they will thrive and they will be sustainable. The worst thing you could do is get a misunderstanding. I'll call it a misunderstanding from a customer when they said, oh, they were supposed to do this, but they didn't. So we talk about a lot of things in our show. We talk about pricing, how to price it. Why you have to be the most expensive small business out there. Why do you have to be that? We talk about, of course, customer service. Customer service is about being on time and communicating, saying thank you. We have lost that quality. People just, because I'm a Black-owned business, you're not entitled just to get business. You have to respect people that's doing business with you. So, having that additional courtesy. In other words, having a good experience when you are making a transaction. So I'm proud of our certified members. That shows a level that they trust what we were doing, and they're committed to the cause. They're committed to their business, and we are going to continue our certifications and spotlighting, highlighting, and promoting our certified members. So thank you.
So thank you very much, Dexter. I wanted us to end on that because this moral vision that Dr. King talked about has to be based on the set of principles. What you just heard our director share with you, boots on the ground, was moral principles. So we have to transform ourselves. I'll end with this statement from the statesman Benjamin Franklin in the founding of the American Republic. Someone asked him, how did you write an almanac? How did you do this and do that? If you know his narrative, he was a very multifaceted person. His language was, I was always reinventing myself. I was always reinventing myself. So let us be amongst those, follow the lead of the chamber. Let's reinvent ourselves. Okay, let's take on new ideas, new thinking systems based on the ones that we can still hold on to that are working systems, and reinvent ourselves to be a working model that other people can look at and transform themselves and help that part of Dr. King's dream come true, because he did not want you to follow him. He said, don't follow me. I've led you into a burning house. Okay, but that does not mean that that house cannot be rebuilt. Okay, and arise from the phoenix of his ashes, as the poet once said. So thank you very, very much for your participation. Again, look forward for this to be on our archives, on the YouTube platform, and we can have many, many discussions from this talk. Good night, and thank you very much.
Good night.